Michael Waltz joins us right now, the Florida Republican congressman, a decorated Green Beret, I might point out. You just don't want to mess with the congressman, or you ask him a tough question because he'll beat you up. You don't want to do that. Congressman, very good to see you. Thanks for coming. Let me ask you a little bit about... Same here, my friend. It's very clear that Russia, forget about the possibility of chemical weapons. Its brutality alone had the Slovenia prime minister telling me the other day, that's been the red line. That's been crossing what are just basic human decencies. And yet it continues. What do we do?
Yeah, and you're going to, sadly, Neil, I think it's going to get worse even before it gets better. As Russia continues to struggle, as Putin fails to hit his strategic objectives, they will compensate for that lack of operational effectiveness with brutality. It is very difficult to go house to house and take down the opposition in urban warfare, in an urban setting. It is tactically far easier to sit back with artillery and aircraft and just level the place and literally turn it into rubble. That's the Russian way of war, as you mentioned in the previous segment. It's what they did in Syria. It's what they've done in Chechnya. It's what they did in Afghanistan. I think what we should have done was send the Ukrainians a lot more on the front end in terms of lethal aid. But we have to stop the foot dragging, stop the dithering, and give them everything they need, not just in volume, Neil, but also in sophistication. And the Ukrainians can fight this fight. They've shown the will. Let's just give them what they need.
Do you think that we should call Vladimir Putin's bluff? I don't mean to trivialize it here, but he's had such a difficult time, dealing with Ukraine and the stiff resistance from just average Ukrainian citizens, that there's no way in heck he will even think or contemplate going into other countries in the region because his soldiers just aren't up to it. He isn't up to it.
Well, I think if this had gone the way he planned, which he intended this to go relatively easily, like it did in 2014 with Crimea in eastern Ukraine, I think what he underestimated was, one, the leadership of Zelensky, but two, the training from U.S. Army Special Forces, my fellow Green Berets, that we've been providing the Ukrainians for the last 7 years since that invasion, and the improvements that they've made in their military. And then you add on top of that the lethal aid we did provide, particularly in the form of the javelins to stop their armored formations, has made it's made a huge difference in the nationalism of the Ukrainians that really has sprung forth since that first invasion. All of things that Putin wasn't planning on. And then finally, his generals clearly sold him a bill of goods in terms of their own capability. Putin has been bluffing for years. He modernized his nuclear forces. He modernized his special forces. But his larger land army and his broader air force aren't nearly as good as advertised. Further, they can't support it logistically. And we're seeing that they're not 10 feet tall. And I think with this stalemate that we're seeing now in Ukraine, and that's why it's so important to support it, I don't see him being able to move further, either domestically from a supply chain and logistics standpoint, or just from a pure military capability. Finally, Neil, he has 75% of his military now, 3/4. He stripped it from all other theaters devoted to Ukraine. He's a spent force at this point.
All right, but when I talked to the Slovenia Prime Minister, Congressman, one thing he relayed to me, and I was thinking about it, not so much call his bluff, but he said he would go after those countries that were providing arms or munitions to the Ukrainians. And of course, he never made good on that. He's also, threatened action if this were to widen and we were to even send in peacekeepers, all of that, and nothing on that front. So do you think that when we're concerned about what his reaction might be if we were to, for example, get an air campaign going, that's misplaced, that he is not going to act on that?
Well, I want to be clear in terms of him invading a land invasion, additional countries past Ukraine now that he's stalled. I think that's increasingly unlikely, but using asymmetric weapons, using long-range precision strike, using cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, or other things of that nature, even attacks in space against some of our space infrastructure, I would not put past him, and I would not put past him using chemical and biological in Ukraine. He will continue to escalate as long as we allow him, and that's why Biden drawing red lines and very clear red lines on the use of WMD is critical, and I don't see the administration doing that.
Interesting. Congressman, thank you very, very much. Good catching up with you.